Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Fat Real Estate Checks. My name is Marco Kozlowski, and I'm here with Francesco Galluccio. And where, oh, where is Gabriele Daish? He is with his family back in Canada. And it's just Franco and Mio today. And today before I get into what we're going to discuss, if you're brand new to this, just stumbling across Big Fat Real Estate Checks, go back to the first 10 episodes, please. And thank you. It'll explain asset-based lending, the creative real estate strategies that we use. So you are not allowed to use any of your own money ever to acquire assets, and been only at this for 22 years. And continuously buying assets in every economic cycle, whether it's good, bad, ugly, sideways, doesn't matter. There's always an opportunity. And specifically now, as things in the climate is changing, we're going to give you some insight as to what we think is going to happen. And because our crystal ball broke, but I've seen this movie before, and very exciting times. And for those that are a little bit fearful on getting into the real estate market now, or think that bad things are coming, they are for the uneducated. If you know what you're doing, there's a great opportunity. And again, if you don't, you're probably going to be left with the short end of the stick, which is very, very sad. Information is very important, very powerful. Ignorance is very expensive, and you're playing with your life and your future. And the more information you have, the better it is. So if you love this, of course, like it, love it, share us. And subscribe as soon as you can, because I know when you do, you're going to get some great information. And once you start delivering the content that we do deliver, you're hopefully going to love it. Tell all your friends, your frenemies, and just profit from the information that we're giving you, the best information that we can give you. And both of us, Frank and I, are here to give. And if you have not heard Gabe, he's also of that mindset. we're all compadres, the three musketeers, and very excited for what's a coming. So let's discuss it. I know, Frank, before we started this recording, you were saying that there's starting to be blood on the streets. There's definitely a rise as of this recording today, which is the beginning of July 2022. Interest rates are rising. The news on the street is that it's to stop inflation. But I think it's actually going to create more inflation. I think that there's a secret plan, I believe, from the government to have as much inflation as possible. It's the only way the U.S. government can get out of debt, because inflation crushes debt. And the more inflation there is, the less the debt is worth that the U.S. owes. And it's probably the only way that the U.S. government can get out of debt. And if that confuses you or doesn't make any sense, listen to past podcasts. 20 dwarves took turns doing handstands on the carpet. I have to enunciate my words. So we're going to discuss, I guess, the perfect storm that we see with increased interest rates. I went to a conference where people were literally just, they were chuffed. They were singing the praises of how smart they were of buying assets that were at a 5% return, when the money is actually more expensive than that now, just because of the raise in rents that is starting to happen, that is significantly higher than the spread of what the money costs versus the, for example, if you're buying at a 5 cap or a 5.5 cap, a 5.5% return, and your interest rate is 5, that 0.5% spread is, significant enough and not dangerous, because of the rent increases that are going to be happening. Which we can definitely discuss. But what I see happening, and Frank as well, is a lot of these guys get these loans, these syndications, or these funds. They buy these assets with a fuse on the mortgage, and a lot of these fuses are at very low interest rates. Frank is definitely going to talk about this, on what the interest rates have been. And as soon as these loans are matured, because they have what's called a balloon, which means that as soon as the balloon pops, you owe all the money. Even if you've made all the payments, if your mortgage is due on a short-term basis loan, which is a lot of how a lot of these assets are taken down, short-term loan, then refinance into a long-term loan, or an exit of a sale, you're going to be screwed if you refinance at 7 or 8 And that's what what that cap rate is, or that return is. You won't be able to refi. In fact, you'll be negative on the return. So it's going to be pretty gnarly, pretty quick, which is exciting for us. So Frank, I don't know if you want to start talking about that.
No, I wanted to just add, when you're on your opener, knowledge is actually power when it's put into action. So
absolutely,
just having knowledge is, it's good, but it's not good enough until you put it into action. But on that note, we're just talking about it. Like, what's going to happen? Well, again, like you said, our crystal ball broke. We don't know what's going to happen. We can only speculate what's going to happen. And from what I'm seeing, again, I'm not a economist or a guru in this, and I don't research and have a whole bunch of screens in front of me and look at tickers and whatever and find out what's going on. It's just common sense. What's going on is, guys, most people over the past several years have enjoyed historic low interest rates, right? So a lot of people leveraged a lot of money, which, in real estate, that's what you want to do. You want to leverage as much as you can. A lot of these people, though, have purchased properties that are, like Marco said, at a 4 or 5 cap return, which, capitalization return, which is, mediocre, because they were getting cheap money. They were getting in it with cheap money. I know up here, and even down in the States, you can get a variable mortgage for like 1%, 1.10, 1.15. A fixed rate, I know they were going for 1.75, and you get a 3 to 5 year fixed rate on a mortgage. So put that in perspective, it's cheap money. So you're buying a property, $1 million, $2, $3 million. It's almost free money. It was ridiculous. So people were getting into that. Now that the government and the Federal Reserve are increasing the interest rates, and they're doing one per quarter. I know Canada is actually ahead of the US. We're a lot higher than the US is, but the US will catch up eventually. They're increasing the rates basically almost every quarter here, and they're not doing a 0.25 basis points. They're doing a 0.5, sometimes even a 0.1. And there's still more to come. So what's happening is, and they're doing that to obviously fight the inflation that we're having, which is also historic. So on one hand, just a year and a half ago or a year, you had historic low interest rates. And now, flip the coin, we have historic inflationary period. So what's going to happen? Those people that are in those bridge loans or those short-term loans, we're not going to see the raft of this until those come due. So as they come due, they're going to think, okay, well, if you bought a property that had a 4 or 5% capitalization rate, and you did, lock in a mortgage for whatever, 1.75 or even 2%, and now all of a sudden it's 4 or 5 or 6%, like Marco said, you're going to be underwater. You're barely covering your debt service, if any. And that's where the problem is going to lie, in my opinion. And listen, with the inflationary period, high interest rates, again, I know the government's trying to reduce the inflationary period, but what actually it's doing, it's preventing people from spending. So all your discretionary spending that people have, before, everything was good. People were working, low interest rates, people were buying shit. Now they're like, we don't need that. Put that back. We don't need that. Put that back. So what does that cause when people are not spending? It's the R word. It's recession. And I think that's where we're going in the next couple of quarters. We will be in a recession. Now, it's not going to be a 2008 recession, I don't think. But there's going to be definitely a market correction in a lot of items and commodities that we do have, including real estate.
Agreed. And if you look at, as the rates rise, and which means it's chewing into your profits, right? The more interest you pay, the less money you make. And if you're banking on only raising the rents and buying at retail, you're going to get into a position where you're basically going to be very close to what your debt service is going to be. So then what happens, right? Which is what's scaring a lot of people. So as you're saying, the discretionary spending is going away. But at the same time, the first thing you always pay is your rent, right?
Well, yes, that's not going to go away. It's all the other goodies and the toys that do that. But again, this is not to scare people. This is actually a huge opportunity for those that are not fearful and have the education. Back in the 30s, in the industrial age, when there was the Great Depression and the recession, that's where the most millionaires were made. And even in 2008, 2009, yes, it was shitty for a lot of people. They lost their homes, their credit. It was bad. But a lot of people made a lot of money during that time. And I think this is just the next big wave that's coming. Listen, guys, It happens every decade. Something happens every decade, give or take. History keeps repeating itself. If you go back, look at the last recession or depression or market correction, it's always been around the decade. We're here now. This is what it is. I actually thought it was COVID that was going to trigger it, but it was a sequence of events that triggered all this. But
yeah,
there you have it. We're back to where we started. So, okay. So what do we do now? So, what should the wiser do? I know there's very advanced strategies that people, very few people know. And I know, Marco, you know what I'm talking about. Nothing that we can talk about on this podcast, but there is definitely opportunities to take advantage of this and to come out like a bandit and, be in a lucrative position if you know what you're doing.
Well, even from a single family space, if we just not big buildings that have 10, $15 million mortgages. So we're not eclipsing the beginner listener. If someone has a mortgage that, because everyone's worried about what's going to happen when the real estate market crashes from a single family real estate perspective goes, right? So as interest rates rise, fewer people buy. If you take a look at how many price reductions are on the MLS, I think I discussed this on one of the last podcasts. I think it was like just in Orange County where I live in Orlando, Florida, I think it was 2,500 price reductions in one day. Right.
And that's in a county.
That's one county, right?
Yeah, that's one county.
So, and that basically is a marker for as prices are being reduced because there are fewer buyers because interest rates go up, then that means as things, the comps will then be less. And as comparables are less, that means the market is sliding downwards. And that trend is going to continue until where nothing is selling. And then if someone really needs to sell, then they really want to discount their asset. And when that starts happening, that's a very exciting time for us. And here's why, at least for those that are educated, in that if you have gotten, for example, bought a property, like the property that's in Orlando last year, over the last 2 years, 2021, a property went on the market. It was gone in seconds. Like there was overbidding war, right? People just bought because they could buy because money was so cheap. So it made sense. So you have someone that bought a property at, let's say 85% or 90% of mortgage, first-time home buyer, even 95% is possible. So that now they have this mortgage at 90% of what its inflated value. As the market starts sliding down, now if it goes down 15%, which is not unlikely, even 20%, now your mortgage is actually more than what's owed on the property, what's valued on the property. You owe more than it's worth, and you got to sell. You're going to have to write a check to get out from underneath that property, right? The interest rate is low, but you want out, you want to sell it. So what do? Do you let it go back to the bank, ruin your credit? Well, that's where, from an investor standpoint, if you know what you're doing, because the rents are so low and the rents are still going to go up, right? You can take over that mortgage if you know what you're doing, not have to qualify for it and just step into the mortgage, start making the payments, even give the seller a couple of bucks to move or whatever they need just for the cash flow. With having a tenant, if you know what you're doing. And the same thing can be said with these larger assets that have these balloon mortgages that have very low interest rates. If there's a syndication and they have to sell within a certain amount of time, they're obligated to sell. You can step into some really fancy, very, very good, solid mortgages at very low interest rates, take over. Or if it's ballooned, as I said earlier, and the balloon pops, I was on a conversation from a conference that I came back from with guys that are head of banks. They'll sell those notes at a discount, basically allowing us to step into these multifamilies at that are already optimized, that just need to sell, that can't because their mortgage is due. And now we can buy these things for way cheaper because we're coming in from the buying the mortgage perspective. Now this is a little bit more advanced, but these are all things that we teach. And just because it's advanced doesn't mean it's out of your reach. There's money available for the right opportunity all the time. So as long as you know how to position yourself on the board in the right way to be in the flow of the money, because it's either going towards a consumer or towards the bank. So either be the bank or be the consumer. There's always a way to step in or do both. Like in the property that I had, I stepped into a property. The house that I live in was actually, I just paid the guy to walk away, took over the debt. The debt went into foreclosure. And I actually bought the debt from my self-directed Roth IRA. Very complex series of events, but my house was in foreclosure by my own self. And I left it there because my IRA could basically charge to get, there's a standard deficient. It basically allowed me to charge the highest amount of interest on deficiency possible by leaving it in foreclosure. So I was basically getting the highest amount of interest allowed by law because of the deficiency. So it played to my advantage because I own the note. And I don't want to confuse anyone or, make this.
Don't you love yourself, Marco? You foreclosed on yourself.
Well, it was already in the balloon.
Well, I know you were making money with your IRA because
Yes.
you're charging, what is the allowable? I know in Canada, I think it was 60%, which was stupid. I think
it's I think in Florida it's 18.99. I was
really that low?
It's 17.99%.
Oh, that's nothing. All right. I think we're up to 60. I know those cash money places where
when they
first opened up, they were like at 60%. Yeah. And actually, they were more than 60%, forgive me. So I think they brought it down to like 40, but 18 is very low. But anyways, kudos to you. You made your IRA was making 18% by foreclosing on yourself. So that is obviously an advanced strategy. Don't try that as a home by yourself. You may get burned for sure. But going back on that note where you said about the single family, where even if the property the property values do drop, and I do believe there's going to be some kind of correction. Now, it's not going to be a catastrophic drop, in my opinion. From what I've been reading, anywhere from 20-30%. So all the gains that's been happening over the past year or few years anyways, may be lost. But even if you get into the property, and a lot of people say, well, why would you buy into a property that's going to go down in value? But at the other side of the token, if rents are higher, which they are higher, by the way, I think rents just this year alone, I think it was back in May, went up 14% from January to that's just in the 5 months, went up 14%, not including, the previous months or years or quarters. But so even if the value of the home or the property goes lower, it doesn't matter. You're not forced to sell because you're looking at it from a cash perspective, a cash flow perspective.
And if we're taking over debt, it doesn't matter because you don't have any money involved or your credit involved. So it doesn't matter at all.
Yes.
And so you're not qualifying for a mortgage and putting money down and putting any risk, which is creative financing, which is what I've specialized in over the last 22 years, because as a Canadian, I couldn't get any debt because I didn't have any credit and didn't have any money. So I had to really figure out how to be creative, not only in the single family side, but also in the commercial side when I hopped into that. And a lot of the creative strategies don't exist. I had to create them, and instruments and ways of putting things together, where even attorneys are scratching their heads saying, yeah, we can do that. But I don't know why we never thought of it, but yeah, we can do that.
Actually, a lot of the strategies you do teach were in existence many, 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 many years ago, where it's like calligraphy. It just went away. It's a lost art. And obviously you fine tune some of them to today's world so it can work today.
Yep.
So that gives you that edge or that advantage to get into a property or just step into the seller's mortgage position, basically.
Yep. So they have we took over a loan not too long ago at 1.9%.
That's And as a foreign national, you're not going to get that. So if there's any foreign nationals listening to this,
or even now,
exactly. That's true.
Try to get a 1.9% now.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. There's no way on God's green earth you're getting a 1.9% loan that's been paid for the last 5 years, which is, I think we've discussed this on previous podcasts, but when you step into a mortgage, you're the first third of the mortgage is all, interest payments. You're paying off interest first. That's how banks have designed it, because you're supposed to sell every 7 to 8 years. You're supposed to sell the property. So the banks get paid first and then you pay off the principal. So they get all the money and you get the rest if you decide to keep it. So I like that program where the seller paid all the interest. I step into a very low interest rate, and now all the rents are paying off the mortgage. That's happening faster, faster than if it was a new mortgage.
You're building equity. So not only are you making cash flow at this point because rents are higher, but you're also, as you're paying off the mortgage, because you're in the second trimester or the third trimester where most of the principal is being paid, you're actually building equity each month as the tenants pay your mortgage.
Even if we're buying it at retail or above retail because of debt, because what you said was they're going down 20 to 30%, right? Yes. And if you're at 90% of your mortgage, you're upside down significantly, and there's no exit for these people, right? They can't pay. They're going to have to pay an agent to get rid of it out of their own pocket, plus pay off the mortgage out of their own pocket. Not a lot of people have that capacity. So there's going to be a huge opportunity for those that are educated on how to just scoop up these really low interest rates with these higher rents and just, make out like a bandit. This is almost exactly the same cycle that I went into back in 2001, 2002, I was very fortunate to step into the right cycle to be able to take over a lot of debt. Took over 100 properties. Took over the debt on 100 properties in the very beginning of learning how to do this. I didn't know what I was doing. I did it wrong, and it sounds impressive, but I only made money on 2. So I lost money on a lot of them because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't position it right. Didn't have the right paperwork. Made the wrong promises. Really screwed it all up. But that's how you learn, right? So now I don't lose money on anything, make money on everything. So
yeah, and a lot of people listen. I didn't know this. A lot of Joes and Ginas out there, the normal folks, they don't know that you can step into and take over existing debt or the debt service, and doing wraps and a lot of other creative things that you can actually do to get the seller out of the property because they need to get out for whatever their reasons are, right? Their motivated factor is, and you stepping in with literally nothing out of your pocket, and that's the whole. Man, that's, if that doesn't get you excited, that gets me excited. If you can get into a property next to nothing, using other people's money, or in this case, it's the bank's money.
Right.
And the bank is in the business of lending money. So, they don't care as long as the payments keep coming in monthly to them. They'll rather have that because they don't want the assets. Banks don't want assets on their books. All right. It's actually detrimental to them. They have less lending power when they have assets under their portfolio. They rather have just cash and mortgages out there as opposed to the physical brick and mortar building.
And we want assets. So it's the opposite.
It's a win-win. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And again, so if interest rates go up and the economy slides, great opportunity to take over assets that are in debt. And that's that. And if we find an asset that's at 30% of today's discount, doesn't matter because we have asset-based lenders that can take care of that as well. So no matter what happens, you're going to be fine. So it's just understanding the opportunity and how to position yourself within that opportunity that's really going to make you shine. There's a tsunami that's coming. There's always waves that are coming, and you can either fight the wave or you can surf on it. No matter how, and some surfers look for the biggest possible waves. They want to surf a tsunami, right? Yeah, it's dangerous, but if you really know how to surf, it's the best experience of your life. It's the time that you want to really take advantage of. These crazy lunatics that go out, I call them crazy lunatics, but they know what they're doing. When there's a hurricane and there's these huge waves, you see these surfers out that are just, yay, this is the best time ever because these waves are ginormous. Yeah. And it'll kill the person that doesn't know what they're doing. And it's the experience of a lifetime that, for those that do. So
what we said before, everyone's running away, you're going towards it. So I like that analogy. Very good.
So no matter what, rates are rising. Things are going to change, and that's exciting. Because the educated will always know exactly what to do. And it's no secret. We teach this shit. If you want to learn how to do it, send us an email, marco@marcokozlowski.com. And I will be delighted to start your education process, your journey. It does take work, does take effort. This does not get rich quick. There are very specific things that you have to learn, how to communicate. And what you think you have to do is actually very different than what most people do. It's not about you and how many deals you can make. It's how we really can serve our counterpart, and communicating in a way that serves is sometimes not that easy because we're so focused on ourselves. We all want to make money, but you can't go to a seller and say, I want to make as much money as possible, because that's never going to work. No business that you've come across that you've done business with a long time says, hey, I want to make as much. They don't say, hey, I want to make as much money out of you as possible. They try to give you value first. And then they ask, the result is money. And most people approach real estate on, trying to do things that are serving only the buyer and not the seller. So we're all about service of buyer, service of seller, not service of ourselves. And that process sometimes is hard to wrap your noodle around the first couple of times you do it. It takes some practice. And that's why we're successful, because we get it and we want you to get it. So I think that's good for now. So Frank, appreciate you. Seller, listener, I appreciate you as well. Maybe you're a seller. Love to buy your property right now. If you're upside down, no problem.
Yes.
Such a deal. I got you.
There you
go. Like us, love us, share us. Please give us comment, feedback. We're on our way to 2,000 5-star reviews, which we always love. One day we'll get to 5,000, I'm sure. And appreciate you very much. And keep listening, keep doing, and don't be afraid of what's happening. Learn how to take advantage of what's happening to really serve as many humans as possible, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So hopefully you love this as much as we love doing it. Appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next podcast. And bye for now. Thanks, Frank.